I want to introduce myself for anyone who doesn't know me. I'm Elizabeth Duart, and I am the National Federation of Democratic Women Eastern Regional Director. And I want to thank everyone for coming today. I really do wish that we could have been in person in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we could have been all together, but as we can't do any of that now, we're not going to be there. And so I'm very grateful for video conferencing so that we can at least still connect. I do want to just say a little bit of housekeeping. Please stay muted, all right? All questions and answers will be via chat, and we will read the questions after the speaker's presentation. And that's if we have time, because as everybody knows who's doing things, these types of conferences, we're always having to be flexible with the time. I do have two helpers, which I want to thank very much. That's Kathy Harrington from both Florida and Connecticut Federation, and Susan Shelton from Texas Federation. And they'll be monitoring the waiting room, letting people in, and they'll be also helping with muting and with chat. So I did want to start today with all that's going on in this world, with just taking a few moments to silently give thanks for what we are grateful for today. So let's just take a moment to take a few breaths and just think some thoughts of thanks. Thank you. I needed that. And I would like to start out that we do have a wonderful group of speakers today. To President Cindy Jenks, but you are now able to unmute yourself and be able to please to speak as you would like. Thank you. So can Cindy, can you unmute yourself?
And Liz, can you ask again for everyone to please mute themselves if they're not muted? We have some people not muted.
Okay, so for everybody to mute themselves if they're not muted, thank you. And then Cindy Jenks, if you could please unmute yourself, because I believe you're still, I can't see the participants, but I believe you are still on the call.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, great. I was having trouble getting unmuted.
Yeah.
I just want to say hi to everybody, the great NFDW Eastern Regional NFDW team, and I'm glad that that this meeting occurred, even if it is virtual. And I wanted to give a great big shout out to Liz Duart, who is your Eastern Regional Director, and to all the ladies who assisted in the production of this meeting. Your theme, which is Women's Votes or Women's Voices, is very timely as we are reminded of Ruth Bader Ginsburg being the voice for equality and for equal rights for women. With her passing, it's time for us to continue to be the voice for equality and all social issues and equal justice for all. We need to get out the vote and get the corrupt and undemocratic autocrats out of our political system. They will be going back on their rule, which prevented the nomination of Merrick Garland from even being brought to the floor. The Trump dictatorship has exposed deep flaws in our system, which was geared to respect for the law and for the Constitution and a sense of honor, which Trump and his GOP sycophants are lacking. This election is crucial to our future, and we have to shed ourselves of this tyranny. Want special thanks to Connecticut for donating the Vera Bradley purse, and thank you to Susan Rutt for donating all the memorabilia and pins to our NFDW online auction. And if I missed anybody or any of your states, please post it so we can recognize you. And ladies, I salute your dedicated work. You're a great team, and NFDW appreciates you very much, and I do too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. And our next speaker that we have for today is our NFDW first Vice President, Carol Comito, who is also President of the Arizona Federation of Democratic Women. So I thank you, Carol, for sharing with us.
Morning, everyone, and good afternoon. Depends where you are. And Liz, thank you for having me, and thank you for putting this on. This is great. It's great to see all of you. And I guess I have to switch screens to see all of you, but I can see most of you. I have to tell you that, don't tell Arizona I said this, but I love the East Coast, and I miss the East Coast. And I'm a Philly girl, and I think you've all heard the saying about you can take the girl out of Philly, but you can't take Philly out of the girl. That's me. I even had a TSA agent say that to me one day. I was really surprised. So I know you're doing a lot of hard work all over the country, and we got to keep doing it. We've got, 32 days, I believe? I think I have that right. And before you know it, we're going to have a new president. We're counting on it. And if we all work together, I know we can make this happen. So I know that there's a lot of activity going on in Pennsylvania. I think that that's one of the focuses today. And imagine you're going to be out there probably, well, you might not be knocking on doors, but you'll definitely be making phone calls. So everything that we do is going to make a difference, obviously. I mean, if we all got out, and there's, I don't know how many people on here right now, we're up to 64, is that the number? If we all got out and we even got one person to vote, and we did that every day between now and November 3rd, can you imagine how many people would be voting? So that's what we got to do. We got to really work hard. And I know that most of us are doing that. You know, there's a lot of people out there that I know have had a hard time with this COVID, and whether, you know, you lost someone or you got sick yourself. But I know that 2021 is going to be a definitely better year for us. We're going to move forward. The organization's going to move forward, and we're going to be stronger because of it. Because everything we do together makes us all stronger. So I'm excited to be working with all of you. If it's up to me, we're going to have a convention in Philadelphia. Anybody on board for that? Where's our Philly people? Okay, and I'll be there. I sent out an email. I just wanted to mention, part of the email was to support Pam Cordova, who's our Western Regional Director, and she's running for the Senate in New Mexico. So we're going to be having an event on October 13th. If you'd like to join us, come on. We'd love to see you there. If anyone's doing anything in their state and they need support, we want to support all of our Federation women. So please, you know, get on that email, let us know who's running, what we can do for them, how we can help them move forward and get elected. So with that, Liz, I think I'll turn it back to you unless anybody has any questions. And I do want to say one thing. I apologize. Arizona, I think most of you know that Mark Kelly is running. So that's who we're working really hard to get elected in the Senate. He's running against McSally. So we really need to work on those senators that we want to get elected in. I know there's like maybe about 5 states that are being targeted to get senators into the Senate and turn that Senate blue. So we have one here in Arizona, and we're all going to be working together to make that happen. So thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Carol. I appreciate hearing from you. And it's always nice to have the East and the West working together.
Yes.
Right? So,
Absolutely.
I did want to, I'm still desperately trying to sign back in because the computer Zoom is like totally frozen up, but I thank everybody for helping out for sure. I would like to very much introduce and thank the Eastern State Presidents. They will share for a few minutes. what activities they're doing in their state for this upcoming election. But we are going to possibly kind of go in between other speakers as well. We'll start right now, but at 12:30 we are going to have a scheduled speaker. So we may just kind of move around with the timing. But I will introduce all now. As I said, we'll be hearing from them throughout the session. First, I'll say Deb Dickey from my very own state, Connecticut. We also have Dorinda White from the District of Columbia, Andrea Mastro from New Jersey, Diane Lechner from New York, Ruth Ragland from Pennsylvania. She's not able to be on the call today, but I think Gwen Collins is here and may be able to speak for her. And Irmgard Pagan from from Puerto Rico, and Nucci Courier from the Women's National Democratic Club. And we also have Prudence Johnson from the United Democratic Women of Maryland. So I do know that, because it's hard for me to see the participants here, I do know that Deb Dickey and, Connecticut's the top of the alphabet. So I'm going to pick on Deb to talk about a little bit of what we've been doing in Connecticut, which is basically thousands of postcards. So Deb Dickey, could you unmute yourself and maybe share a little bit of what's happening in Connecticut?
Okay. Yes. Postcards, and postcards. But we have been actively working with other states. We're sending to Philadelphia now. We've sent to North Carolina, and we've sent to Texas. And a lot of us are very actively involved locally and sending out postcards. In my district, we have an absolutely terrible state senator, so state representative. Our state senator is terrific, but we're sending out thousands of handwritten postcards and doing everything we can. Connecticut's still pretty strict in the COVID thing, and my city just went into a red alert. So we're being pretty careful, but it's wonderful to see all the involvement that we're seeing throughout the states. And, we know everybody is doing what we can because we really want a new president. And while I wish no one really ill, there is something to be said with karma, but, we're trying. At least the weather here is cooperating and New England is turning beautiful. So we're all getting up to a new morn and hoping for the best and for a new president come November 3rd. So that's about all I have to report.
Thank you very much, Deb. And I am back on. I had to put down my computer and now I'm finally back on, which I'm really grateful for. But now I have to make my phone be quiet. So I think there's still some background. My goodness, I am so glad I am with friends because this has never happened before. So I'm still echoing. Hold on. Let me totally. There I am. Okay. So next I would like to ask, I think Dorinda White is on the call from District of Columbia. Do you have a few words?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you for coming together on this auspicious Saturday when, as someone noted earlier, we are all praying for the well-being of our current president and looking forward to the well-being of our future president, Biden. But with that said, let me go into a very brief overview of what we have been doing here in the District of Columbia. And if you hear a puppy in the background, she's trying to get my attention, so please forgive me. Basically, we have been working we have two clubs, as you know, we have the Metropolitan Women's Democratic Club and the DC Democratic Women's Club. I'm going to start with the Metropolitan Women's Democratic Club, and they have been aggressively working on voter suppression, registration, and getting out the vote in several states with a great deal of emphasis on the 6 battleground states of Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and in DC. And they have a theme, which is winning in 2020. saving the House, flipping the Senate, taking back the White House. So some of the events that they've done has been, they've had the DC Board of Elections give a virtual meeting on how to vote in the upcoming election. They've had an event called What the Election Means for Democracy with Ebony Taylor, the DNC Director of the Black Caucus, Amy Steele, a candidate for North Carolina House, and Denzel Wendy Smith, National Co-Chair, Black Women for Biden. They've also held an event, The State of Social Justice, with an ordained minister, Rhonda Michelle Johnson. How to Win, they have Michigan from the eyes of the former candidate for the House of Representatives, China Cochran. They've sent out 3,000 postcards, and they've written them and sent to North Carolina, Philadelphia. Hundreds of phone calls and text messages have been made, again, to those battleground states, and they're planning on October 7th to have a debate party in partnership with our Democratic State Committee. Overall, and I'll get to the other club in a second, overall, the DC Federation of Democratic Women, we've continued overall with the clubs together a voter education outreach campaign to elect Biden and Harris. I'm looking on my little phone here to make certain that I don't lose the information. But we have what's called the Team 2020. We hosted a Zoom training on voter suppression and engagement led by Andrea Miller, Executive Director of Reclaim Our Vote, featuring Rita Jo Lewis in July. And Liz was our favorite Zoomster. She held us down. We had Team 2020 hosted a radio program on voter suppression on the Lindia Grant Show, featuring Deanna Foster, Executive Director of the AFL-CIO here in DC. Team 2020 members also joined the DC Democratic State Committee Voter Outreach and Education Committee. We hosted an event which was very successful called Let's Get in Good Trouble. Once again, Liz was our Zoomster. We had a Zoom training and conversation with Brenda Jones, author of the 4-book series, Queens of the Resistance. And I think some of you were able to join us on that wonderful event. The DC Democratic Women's Club and the Metropolitan Women's Democratic Club are currently participating in text per cent messaging, phone banking, and postcarding campaign, and we're still continuing that as we go forward. Going forward, the Metropolitan Women's Democratic Club is hosting a GOT text banking, as I mentioned earlier. They're also having a Zoom training targeted to 18 to 40-year-olds, featuring the Michigan State Representative China Cochran. It happened on the 9th. And we are hosting a presidential Democratic debate party on October next week. And we are also hosting a youth town hall interactive Zoom session on September 15th at 7 p.m. So that we can reach out to the youth and engage them in getting out to vote for the 2020 elections. And one event just added to our calendar is on Wednesday, we are doing the DC ballot, what you need to know. So we're trying to educate, because many of us have received our absentee ballots. And we're trying to educate the DC voter on the referendum and other candidates, Democratic candidates on the ballot. So we've been quite busy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorinda. And I just have to tell you, I have loved being able to be the Zoom person for your meetings, because they're wonderful meetings, absolutely wonderful meetings. And I am extremely grateful that my computer did not freeze up at your meetings. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
And I think we just have about 3 more minutes or so until our first speaker. So if Andrea Mastro from New Jersey, I believe that you said that you would be here to be able to speak. If you could unmute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you. Is Andrea on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, we can.
Hi. Hello, everyone from New Jersey. We are also very engaged in all of the campaigns. New Jersey is fortunate to have 2 women running against Republican incumbents. We have, at the state level, we held fundraisers for them through their campaigns, and we raised some money for them. We are also doing phone banking for each of Amy Kennedy in CD2 and Stephanie Schmidt in CD4. Each chapter is also having either virtual or in-person outdoor fundraisers for their municipal and county candidates. So we are working actively to do that on the ground. We also have partnered with Victory 2020 and Jersey Girls for Joe, which morphed into Jersey Girls for Joe and Kamala. We make phone calls several nights a week. Monday is the main day, but we can get on their link and make phone calls. We've also been making, as I said, phone calls for Amy and Stephanie, and I know Somerset County is helping another Congressman, Tom Malinowski, to get reelected. So phone banking, postcards, talking to battleground states, as well as putting out information about New Jersey's vote by mail and trying to make sure that everyone understands how to sign it, how to vote it, all of that voter information is what we're doing here. And also karma, we do not wish the president ill, but we know that, at least I personally, as just a Democratic woman, hope that this will trigger those people in the Midwest to realize that our current president is not the one we want to keep. So thank you very much, Liz. And thank you for everyone who is on this call today. And I'll turn it back.
Ms. Grant is the program advocate who oversees the development of specific programs and initiatives across the Commonwealth. Alexa also manages both written and electronic communications for Common Cause Pennsylvania. She comes to Common Cause Pennsylvania with a diversified background in public affairs and communications. Before joining Common Cause, Alexa served as client relations specialist with Cheryl Lyons Public Affairs and Communications for 4 years, where she incorporated client goals into written, electronic, and earned media and assisted in the day-to-day management of client affairs. She holds a Master's in Public Administration from Penn State University and a Bachelor of the Arts in Political Science from the University of Delaware. Alexa is also a member of Pennsylvania Public Relations Society. So now I'm going to ask, since I should have done that first, is Alexa here?
I am here.
Thank you very much. So now we can turn this over to you, since I'm working off of my phone right now, so it's hard to see. So
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you everyone for having me. It's very rare where I get on a Zoom call and it's all women, so this is this is a fun experience. So as Liz gave with her glowing introduction, my name is Alexa Grant, and I'm the program advocate here at Common Cause Pennsylvania. Excuse me. So I thought I'd start and just tell you what Common Cause is and what we do. Common Cause is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. We work to create open and honest and accountable government that serves the public interest, promotes equal rights, opportunities, and representation for all, and empowers and promotes all people to make their voices heard in the political process. I will start by saying this is one of the strangest work weeks I've ever had. There's certainly not a shortage of things going on that we've never experienced before. So I'll be sure to save time at the end for questions, as I'm sure we'll have a lot. But how I wanted to frame the discussion today is, I know some of you, we got some Philly girls on, which I always love. As we heard earlier this week, bad things happen in Philly, and if Trump knew anything about Philly, he would know that we would love him saying that. So that kind of backfired. But how I thought I would frame this discussion is go through the political landscape of Pennsylvania. What's that like right now? why Pennsylvania would always be a focus in 2020 and why it's even more so today, and talk about some opportunities that you guys can get involved with to help in Pennsylvania. So starting with the political landscape, I want to start by saying that Pennsylvania is a commonwealth, which is basically a fancy way of saying that a lot of the power is left to the counties.
Yeah.
So counties are really left to carry out the election, which in some counties is good and in others is problematic. And that later with the implementation of Act 77. So we are a swing state here in Pennsylvania and a battleground state as well. And we have diversified leadership in terms of parties. Right now we have a Democratic governor and Democratic row offices, which are, you know, Auditor General, Attorney General, Treasurer, those are all Democratic. And then we have an all Republican legislature, which has caused some fireworks in terms of what we're doing in the pandemic and also election code changes that we anticipated seeing, but I don't think that we will end up seeing. There are also several ongoing lawsuits here in Pennsylvania, as it is such a focus, and this is our first time really using vote by mail on this type of scale. As I mentioned, Trump is making Pennsylvania a focus and a priority. He mentioned it several times in the debate. He's been here several times, and as has his entire family. So Pennsylvania is definitely a focus for Trump because he needs it to win. So that's basically what's going on here in terms of the political landscape of Pennsylvania. So we're very diversified in terms of party leadership and what's going on in our state legislature. So Pennsylvania was always going to be a focus in 2020. We know that it is right now, particularly, but I'll go through a few reasons why it was always going to be a focus. The first is Pennsylvania is using new voting machines for the first time. A lot of counties rolled them out in 2019, but I think around 23 counties were left to roll them out in 2020. And as many of you know, voting in the primary in Pennsylvania, which was originally April 28th and got moved to June 2nd, was difficult to do in person. So we anticipate a lot of people in those counties will be seeing new machines for the first time in November. And what these machines do is they take a paper record of the actual vote as opposed to the total number of votes on a machine. There are several different models in Pennsylvania. Like I said, it's left up to the county. So the county was the one responsible for procuring that voting machine in that model. If you are concerned or you have friends, family that are concerned about using a new voting machine for the first time, the Department of State has actually put all the voting machines and demos on the website, which is amazing. And you can look that up by county. All that can be found at votespa.com. And I'll go through some other resources later. So Pennsylvania was key in 2016 as well. We saw a lot of suburban focus in 2016, which is why Trump ended up winning the state. And we're a purple state. But we also have new voting laws here in Pennsylvania. In 2019, I was happy to be able to work with the state legislature in passing Act 77. And this was a comprehensive omnibus voting reform package. For some context, Pennsylvania had not changed its voting laws since the 1930s. So any change to the election code would have been monumental. But now we have several different things that are different here in Pennsylvania. One of the things to come out of that bill was funding for the new voting machines for counties. Another is we changed our voter registration date, which should make everyone on the phone here excited. Originally, we had 30 days before the election. We were one of the most restrictive states when it came to voter registration. Now we're at 15 days. So the deadline for voter registration here in PA is October 19th. And people can sign up to register online or at their county elections office. There's a lot of options there. But the major change that is the focus of discussion with the president and media outlets and legislation and litigation here in Pennsylvania is the ability to vote by mail. So for the first time, Pennsylvania is able to use no excuse absentee voting. We refer to that in Pennsylvania as strictly vote by mail because we also still have absentee voting. Absentee voting is written into our Constitution, and so we can't get rid of it without a constitutional amendment. So people have two options when they want to vote by mail. One is the traditional absentee version where you need some kind of excuse. You're in the military overseas, you have a disability, you can't vote. That's excuse absentee voting. We now have no excuse absentee voting, which you'll hear strictly referred to as vote by mail because Republicans don't like the word no excuse. So what would have been a rollout that could have had some complications already in the primary turned out to be a literal lifeline for Pennsylvanians. 1.5 million Pennsylvanians used vote by mail in the primary. Department of State was expecting a lot less. And so you may have seen some hiccups in the primary, but we're learning from those. And so far, over 2 million Pennsylvanians have signed up to vote by mail so far. We anticipate that going up to 3 million by the end of October. In Pennsylvania, the vote by mail application deadline is October 27th. We ask that if you are planning to vote by mail in Pennsylvania, you do that a lot earlier because that is just 1 week before the election. And if you want to get your ballot and return it in time, we ask that you apply early and mail early. And I'll go through some different options with that as well. So what comes with vote by mail in Pennsylvania? Like I said, it's up to the counties on how they handle it, but there are a few options. One, traditional, you can just put your ballot in the mail. Pennsylvania does have all return envelopes for vote by mail prepaid. That was new for the general election. It was not that way in the primary. So thanks to Governor Wolf, we have that prepaid option. So people don't have to worry about getting a stamp or finding it or doing any of that. It's already done. But how can they return it? Like I said, traditional mail, you can slip it in the mailbox. That's how I voted in the primary, just slipped it in the mail. But what are some other options? Other options are drop boxes. Like I said, it depends on the county. So you can find the information on drop boxes on your county website. These are basically, if you've ever used like returned a library book, it's basically that. You slip it in. It's a county supervised site. It's secure. Depending on what county you live in, there will be several options for you. And those are monitored, and there's a chain of custody with those ballots. So for anyone that's concerned with Dropbox security, it is very secure. It's how multiple other states run their elections, including Colorado and Utah, for example. So we have red and purple states using this as well. If you live in the Southeast or in Allegheny, you'll probably have more options for drop boxes. In the middle of the state, not so much, but that is one option available. Another option that's actually new for the general election are these things called satellite elections offices. You'll hear different terms for it depending on party, but it's almost like a vote early site. So what you're able to do at those sites is you can apply to vote by mail, get the ballot right away and get approved, fill out the ballot and give it back. So it's a one-stop shop to vote by mail. Again, depends on the county. Right now we have 6 sites in the city of Philadelphia. This is where you heard Donald Trump talk about in the debate. These are satellite elections offices. People aren't actually using a machine. So there's no reason for his requested poll workers to be there unless they would also like to be at every mailbox in America. So that's another option for voters. These are being used in several counties as well. Again, depending on the county, you can check your county website and see if that's available to you. And then the last option, which is available in every county in Pennsylvania, is the county elections office. They are all equipped to receive ballots. So if you are concerned or a family member is concerned about putting it in the mail and getting that on there on time, you can take that ballot to your county elections office and return it. I will add that in Pennsylvania, you can't take anyone's ballots except your own. So if you're making a plan to get all your family's ballots and take them back, that's not going to work. you have to return it yourself. If there is some reason that your husband or your children or what have you can't return the ballot for some reason, you can file for an emergency absentee ballot and return it that way. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's also been a series of litigation here in Pennsylvania, including the Trump campaign suing the Department of State. So there's a few different levels to those lawsuits. One was ruled in the Commonwealth Court a few weeks ago. And on that same day, I'd actually ruled that ballots were fine the way they were. There was a suit between the Democratic and the Green Party. So ballots were mailed late here in Pennsylvania. A lot of them have been mailed out this week. But just to add another layer onto Pennsylvania fun, ballots are traditionally mailed September 15th, but due to a lawsuit, they were held up. So they have all been approved. All the counties have had their ballots approved. And just in terms of mailing them out, I know Allegheny County has been mailing out their ballots. I don't know if Philly has yet because they have a lot of different jurisdictions that they have to print and get mailed out. But ballots are on the way for everyone. In other pieces of litigation at the Commonwealth Court level, we saw a ruling that made drop boxes legal. Trump cannot take away drop boxes, at least not at this time. And one thing that's important to note here in Pennsylvania that's kind of unique is with your vote by mail return envelope. So one of the things that came from this ruling that is worth noting is the secrecy envelope here in Pennsylvania. So when you get a vote by mail envelope, you have your ballot, you fill it out, you put it in a secrecy envelope. This guarantees your privacy, which is written into the Constitution here in Pennsylvania, which is why this was upheld the way it was. And then you put that secrecy envelope in the vote by mail envelope, and that is the one that you sign and date and write your name. If you do not have the secrecy envelope when you send it back to vote by mail, your vote will not be counted. So there are several different campaigns throughout Pennsylvania, but if you are reaching out to anyone talking about vote by mail, that is extremely important to note that they need to have that secrecy envelope. We still have the federal level lawsuit with the Trump administration. We're expecting arguments, I believe, October 13th and 14th. So we'll see what comes out of that. But that's where we are in terms of litigation. We have some clarity here in Pennsylvania. Drop boxes are legal. So we have clarity on the secrecy envelope ruling so we can start moving forward. If there's any PA specific questions, happy to answer them in the chat. And I know we'll leave time at the end as well, but I know it's pretty confusing. So I just want to make sure that if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I will just make this plea as you're talking to people and making plans yourself here in Pennsylvania or actually anywhere. If you are planning to vote, which I assume all of these wonderful ladies are if they haven't already, make a plan. First part of that plan is to make sure your registration is up to date. If you've moved, if you've changed your name, if you've gotten married, please check your registration. That's the first step. And like I said, we have until October 19th to change the registration here in Pennsylvania. So I ask that you please look at that. If you're planning to apply for a vote by mail ballot and you haven't already, first, check to make sure you weren't on the permanent list when you signed up in the primary. You can sign up to just automatically receive vote by mail ballots. If you apply again and you've already on the permanent list, it'll just delay you getting your ballot. So check to make sure that is the case first. If you did sign up for that program and you sign up to vote by mail online, you can check your ballot like a status tracking tool, like you can check an Amazon package. So that's pretty cool here in Pennsylvania. And if you have a question whether or not you already signed up, because I've done this a few times already, go all the way to the right in that ballot tracking tool and it will say pending. And that's how you know you've already signed up and you don't need to apply again. If you haven't applied yet to vote by mail, please do so now to make sure that you can get your ballot in time and use any of the options I described. So You can use a drop box, satellite elections office, your mailbox right out front, put it in the mail, or drop it at your county elections office. There are a lot of options. Don't give up. If you get it late, there are options available. I will also add that if you get your ballot late through Act 12 here in Pennsylvania, which was the emergency bill that we created for the primaries, there is a ballot spoiling option for you. So you get your vote by mail ballot late, you don't have enough time, you can take your ballot and your envelope to your polling location and spoil it there, and you can vote on a machine. I wouldn't highly recommend this as an option just because I think it'll create a lot of confusion at the polling place, but it is an option available for you. But like I said, you need to have the ballot and you need to have the envelope with you and take it to the polling place. I know there'll be a ton of questions on that. So like I said, plenty of options available. And if you signed up to vote by mail and don't get your ballot in time, you can still go to your polling place and vote provisionally. So what is a provisional ballot? It's basically a ballot that they will hold on to, check your name against the registration and make sure you haven't voted by any other means, and then they will count that ballot. So they'll put it aside, check the record, and then they'll count it. So there's literally so many options available. Don't give up because, you know, it's tricky or things become difficult. Still plenty of options available. If you plan to vote in person, which I know a lot of people are, because voting on election day, and like many people tell me pulling the lever, I never pulled the lever, but apparently that's a very exciting experience. Pushing the button, I understand that instant gratification, getting that I voted sticker and rubbing it in everyone's face. I will ask that you check your polling location before you go out. It's possible that it could have changed because of COVID precautions. Old polling locations that were in retirement homes, for example, will no longer be there. Some schools will opt out. So please check your polling place before you go because it could be different than the last time you went. Also be prepared to wait in line. There's new voting machines, there's social distancing, there's people returning their ballots to the polls. So there is going to be some things to figure out and you will have to wait in line probably. So just depending on where you live, I just want you to set that anticipation for yourself. Also, I'm sure everyone on this call is with it, but I will just say, wear a mask, social distance. You can bring your own pen, which I thought was crazy and I didn't think of something like that in the primary. You can bring your own pen to the polling place. And all polling places, you'll be required to wear a mask. They will social distance and tape off for you, and there'll be plenty of hand sanitizer and wipes. The Department of State is providing all of that for you. And like I said earlier, if you are in a county that's using a new voting machine, you can check it out ahead of time online from the safety of your home, on your couch, and go through and see that record. So how can you get involved? I know everyone on this call is involved already with doing postcards and amazing things leading up to the election, but if you live in Pennsylvania or if you live close, how can you get involved? One of the things that Common Cause is doing is running a program called Election Protection. What is that? So EP is a nonpartisan coalition that provides Pennsylvanians with comprehensive information and assistance in all stages of voting. So we run a hotline, 866-OUR-VOTE, that people can use any time of day with any question that they have. And there are a lot of questions here in Pennsylvania. So we'll help you through every stage from voting registration. If you got denied and you don't know why, or it's pending, you can call the hotline and get help. Casting your vote at the polls, overcoming obstacles in participation. We're here to help you make sure that works. At the hotline, the 866-OUR-VOTE hotline, we have nonpartisan trained volunteers, lots and lots of lawyers who want to get involved and help to answer those questions. I will make sure they're specifically trained because I'm giving them extra Pennsylvania training. As we can see, Pennsylvania is a little complicated. We also have language access hotlines. So we have Arabic, we have Spanish, and a few others as well. So there's plenty of options for people. In the primary, we expected to get 300 calls to the hotline on election day. We got almost 2,000. So there's no shortage of questions here in Pennsylvania. Right now, we're getting around 100 to 200 calls a day. And we're not even into late October when people are like, oh yeah, election. So we're expecting a lot. But what have we been doing at EP in the meantime before all of this is happening? We're doing advocacy. So at the state legislature, we're advocating for bills that help voters and also help county officials. There have been 2 bills particularly we've been watching. There have been several iterations of this bill, which is House Bill 2626 here in Pennsylvania. It's another omnibus voting package, and it has a series of things, including pre-canvassing. In Pennsylvania, we can't even open the envelopes to vote by mail until 7 a.m. on Election Day, which will cause a lot of concern from different parties about how long it takes Pennsylvania to count ballots. We can't even physically open the envelopes until Election Day. So we do have to just set expectations that it'll take a long time. We have advocated in the legislature for this, but it's just something that hasn't moved. You also may have heard about this bill, House Resolution 1032. It's a Republican bill or resolution that will create a committee that can investigate the 2020 general election. The way the bill is written right now gives the chair sole subpoena power and the ability to subpoena voters or vote workers on Election Day. It's a scary bill. We are monitoring it, and we're working, trying to get an amendment, or it's just to kill it entirely. Funnily enough, if you want to say it, this bill was supposed to be voted on Thursday in the Pennsylvania House. A member had COVID and the day had to be canceled. So they couldn't vote on this bill, and they won't be back until October 19th. So definitely keep an eye on it, but we think that that bill is dead at the moment. So what kind of other advocacy are we doing? We talk regularly with the Department of State, making sure that they understand what voters need and different advocacy groups are asking for. We're in contact with people at DOS and work with them regularly. We're getting data needs, and we're also advocating for more county guidances. So county guidance is something that the Department of State writes up to give an explanation or guidance on how something works. So one of the latest ones that they've done is like how to set up for social distancing and ensure privacy, how to deal with vote by mail, and how to deal with satellite elections offices and how to set those up effectively. So we're advocating for more guidances from them just to make sure that the counties have every resource that they need to be as successful as possible. And then of course, you know, the counties here in Pennsylvania are super important, and that's where we spend a lot of our time. We have 3 people here at the Common Cause team who are dedicated solely to election protection and county work. We have a county resiliency officer, which helps go through resiliency plans for counties. What if the power goes out? Do you have enough ballots? Do you have enough provisional ballots? That type of thing. And we also keep records of what's happening in each county so that our volunteers and hotline workers know what's going on, because as I mentioned, it's very different in what county you're working in. We also have coalition members who are focused on county advocacy as well, and outside groups who are focusing mainly on ballot boxes and satellite offices. So other than advocacy, what else? We also do voter education. We're doing mailing pieces. Partners are making some really great social media content, especially around the secrecy naked ballot envelope. So if you don't put it in a secrecy envelope here in Pennsylvania, the ballot's called a naked ballot. So there have been a lot of fun different social media memes going on about that. We're doing media buys, billboards. You'll be hearing a lot from us over the next month, trying to get that hotline out there to make sure people have a resource to call if they have questions. Our partners also here in Pennsylvania at the ACLU of Pennsylvania have put together an amazing Know Your Rights page on their website. And they have a ton of different frequently asked questions that are super helpful. We've been helping them put that together, and we will be adding to it. I'm sure more questions will be coming up. But the final piece, and the piece that I want to kind of push here, is our field piece. So in Pennsylvania, we have a goal of 1,000 people out in the field to help volunteers. We have 1,000 people signed up now, but of course, we need some resiliency reserves as well. So what are the field and volunteer options? The main one is our poll monitor, and that's our most traditional volunteer role. You can go to either your polling place on election day, or we can assign you one if you're willing to travel that we think, might not hurt having a person there that we've seen problems with in the past. So what will you do as a poll monitor on election day? You'll go to the polling place, stand with 10 feet away, because that's the line here in Pennsylvania, you can't be within 10 feet. And you'll answer questions that voters have as they're coming in. You can report long lines or any type of problems that you see to us, and we will get the answers and we will report to the people that we need at our command center to make sure that those issues and those long lines are being addressed. It's also a really great opportunity for a lot of people. We have 3-hour shifts, so it's not a super long part of your day. You want to volunteer all day, great. But a lot of people have so much fun doing this volunteer role. It's great. I will add it's nonpartisan, so there is that, but really great opportunity on election day to help some voters here in Pennsylvania. The second option, which we created in the midst of the primary and the COVID crisis, is our roving option. So if you don't want to get out of your car, but you still want to help, you can totally do that with us. If you want to put signs at polling places as your rover option, you can totally do that. We have 866 Our Vote signs so people know who to call. But we also might just have you drive around to different polling locations, checking on lines, checking to see if there's any problems. Or if we get a call at our command center, which is where our hotline feeds into to raise larger problems, we can send you to the polling place to check it out for us. So the rovers were amazing in the primary. We actually had a rover in Pittsburgh. In the primary, the polling place consolidation was very high, especially in Pittsburgh. They reduced their polling places up to 83%. So there was 80,000 people at one polling place. That's the number of voters that were there. So of course there was problems, just in terms of traffic, because it was one way in, one way out. So as the deadline to vote here in Pennsylvania, which is 8 p.m. approached, there was a line of cars. There was cars getting towed. There's people trying to get into the polling location. So we had a rover dispatch there, take some pictures, and then working with the ACLU, they were able to testify. We were able to extend that polling location's hours. So these people are amazing. They do really good work, which is really cool. And actually something good that came out of the pandemic is this rover role. We also...
Alexa,
go ahead.
I want to thank you so much for all of your information, but I am just going to have to be able to just give you one more minute.
Oh, totally. Yeah, so I'll just skip to the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really didn't think I was going to be able to talk for 20 minutes, but
I understand that.
Oh, yeah. So I have some resources for you. One is votespa.com. If you have any questions or want to look at something on the county level, or want to register to vote or register to mail ballot, that's the one-stop shop, votespa.com. It's set up by our Department of State. It's really amazing. For any frequently asked questions or know your rights material, the ACLU of Pennsylvania has a great page on that. If you're interested for election protection and doing one of the great roles I discussed, you can go to protectthevote.net and sign up to do that. I will put it in the chat, so make it really easy for you. And of course, if you want to learn more about Common Cause or Common Cause Pennsylvania, you can look us up, Google. We're at commoncause.com/Pennsylvania. And I know I don't have a ton of time for questions, but I'd be happy to take any.
I thank you so much, Alexa. I really, really appreciate this information. I do have Congressman Joe Courtney on the line. He's having a hard time getting in, so I just wanted to give Congressman Joe Courtney from Connecticut a few minutes. And I just want to say that he represents the 2nd District of Connecticut, and he serves on the House Armed Services Committee and House Education and Labor Committee. And I just want to say that everyone in Eastern Connecticut, and even a whole lot of Republicans, just love Joe. That you are one of the kindest elected officials that I know. And you always take time to listen, and then you go to Washington, D.C., and you fight for us for justice and fairness. And it is an honor to have you here, even just for a few minutes. Thank you so much, Congressman Courtney.
Well, thank you, Liz. I got nowhere to go but downhill after that introduction. And again, I caught the tail end of Alexa's update, and obviously very focused on the question of the day, which is to obviously in the next 30 days maximize voter turnout as much as possible. You know, I got elected actually in a wave election back in 2006 when we flipped the House to Democrat and made Nancy Pelosi Speaker the first time. In our district, which is a purple district, we won by 83 votes out of 240,000 cast. It took about 2 weeks to get through the recount process. And that still stands as the closest general election margin going back to the 1990s. And Liz and I, and a lot of folks in the district, obviously that memory kind of pushes us every two years to really be focused on turnout. With 30 days out, I would just say the last wave election, which just occurred in 2018, was extremely encouraging. Largest voter turnout in a midterm election since 1914. And it obviously just sort of blew up all the conventional wisdom about, that the House was too tightly structured in favor of the Republicans. Voter suppression was just too much to overcome by Democrats. And we elected people like Kendra Horn, from Oklahoma, which nobody in their wildest dreams would have predicted, or Melissa Slotkin up in, upper state Michigan, extraordinary new class, with great leadership, women leadership that on both those two committees that Liz mentioned has really made a huge difference. And, as we're sort of fighting for the HEROES 2.0 Act, the COVID relief bill, Speaker Pelosi has us on 24 hours notice in terms of trying to see whether or not we can come to an agreement to provide critical resources for folks. Obviously we're still in the midst of a public health nightmare, and that is going to continue to drag down and hinder the economy, causing real harm to individuals. We still are determined, even with days away from an election, to try and get a package through. What I would just sort of leave with you is that wave election in 2018, which put Nancy back in the speaker's chair, both in terms of the CARES Act, the other COVID relief bills, and the one that's being negotiated right now. Just thank God that the country did that 2 years ago, because all of the parts of the CARES Act, whether it was, support for our healthcare system for testing, tracing, and treatment, the funds for state and local government, which were not enough in the CARES Act, but at least were something, none of that was in Mitch McConnell's bill back in March when that passed. And it was Speaker Pelosi, being able to negotiate with a very unified caucus that was able to pry loose the provisions that really, I think, mattered the most in terms of, what the country needs. And that's the same right now in terms of HEROES Act 2.0. So we'll see, whether things come together, but, there's obviously so much at stake in the next 30 days. I know the people listening in, don't need, frankly, much of a primer on that. One quick fact in terms of, again, how, women's issues are so important in this election. It's been 1 year since the Violence Against Women Act cleared the House with 40 Republican votes, and it's still stuck in Mitch McConnell's inbox. Again, one of many cases in terms of, issues and bills that we passed in the House that have been just willfully and irresponsibly blocked from consideration. And, the hope that after November 3rd, we really are going to see a wave, and we are going to see, Washington look a lot different in January, I think means that bills like the Violence Against Women Act and many, many others are finally going to see the light of day and become law. And the only way we get there, though, is by voting and maximizing the turnout. I've been on the campaign trail in the district all morning, and we're seeing record numbers of absentee ballot applications. Connecticut's not a mail-in state, so this is kind of new territory for us, like many other states in the Northeast. And trying to make sure that people get the best information about how to get those ballots back in. Sadly, the Postal Service has been so willfully damaged by this administration. We're going to use Dropbox and hand delivery as much as possible, just to make sure that there's just no undercount on our side, which again is looking very promising in terms of the applications that have come in, and which party is in bigger numbers. But anyway, Liz, thank you for letting me just drop in for a few minutes. We obviously, I think, feel very strong about the bluest part of the country, and now it's all about just execution over the next 30 days. And hopefully we'll all get together in person in Washington, D.C. sometime soon to celebrate what I think will be an epic election for the country.
Thank you so much, Congressman Courtney. I have to tell you how very, very much we appreciate you. You work so hard for us, and thank you very much for taking a few minutes out of your very busy day to speak with us. Have a good rest of the day.
Great. Okay, Liz. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Now I will quickly go on to, I hope, Diane Lechner, from President of the New York Federation of Democratic Women. Could you unmute yourself and introduce our main speaker, please?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Liz. And I'm really happy to be on the call with so many wonderful, accomplished, energetic women who are ready to take us to victory in November. I would like to introduce our next speaker. Her name is Cindy Otis. I met Cindy working on a campaign. She was a communications person on this campaign in New York for Congress a couple of years ago. I found her to be very engaging. She's so accomplished. She has such high energy. I don't know how she accomplishes everything that she does and how she has the time to do that. And she has a very interesting background in national security. She's the vice president currently of analysis for the Alethea Group, a disinformation investigations and remediation firm, and is an expert on disinformation threat analysis and counter messaging. She's also a senior non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab and an associate at Argonne National Lab. Prior to joining the private sector in 2017, she served in the CIA as a military analyst, intelligence briefer, and manager in the Directorate of Intelligence. She is a frequent media commentator and is regularly cited in publications such as The Washington Post, New York Times, Politico, and NPR. She is also a member of USA Today's Board of Contributors. Cindy is the author of the newly released book, True or False, a CIA Analyst's Guide to Spotting Fake News, out now with Macmillan. And I have the pleasure of introducing Cindy right now to you. And Cindy, if you're on, take it away.
I am on, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Thanks so much for the kind introduction, Diane. And it's lovely to see you on screen again. So thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be with a group of women who are actively fighting for our democratic processes and to encourage people to actively take part in the very sort of basics of our democracy, which is our elections. I speak to a range of audiences often, but I've been eagerly looking forward to being able to talk with you all and just be in your presence and sort of feed off of your energy, because I think we're all sort of looking for ways to keep ourselves hopeful and energetic, and certainly everything that you all are doing does both for me, so thank you. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things, but also open it up later to questions that you all might have. So just a little bit more about the kinds of things that I do on a daily basis in my role. So through my company, we work with a lot of voter protection organizations, election officials across various states, and other kinds of nonprofit organizations that are focused on election integrity, election security, and all of those things. And I'm in charge of our investigative work. So daily I am on forums and social media and on websites, hunting and trying to track down all of the many bad actors that are working very, very hard to make sure that our votes don't count, that people don't show up to vote, and that people are as confused, angry, and fearful as possible. So that's how I'm approaching this issue. I thought that it might be a good starting place for me to talk about sort of what has changed on the disinformation front since 2016. So first, just so we're all on the same page about what I mean when I say disinformation versus misinformation, because I'll use both terms. So disinformation and misinformation, the big difference between the two of them is intention, the intention of the actor sharing the information. So disinformation is false information that an individual, group, government, what have you, intentionally spreads, knowing that it's false with the intention of manipulating or changing a person's behavior or influencing in some way. Whereas misinformation is something probably most of us are guilty of. It's sharing false information, not knowing that it's false, and without any sort of nefarious intention. So with that sort of setting of the stage, I think we have to look at, when we talk about how disinformation has changed since 2016, I think we have to take a step back, because a lot has happened since 2016, and put it in the broader context. So we're having a presidential election during a global pandemic. At the start of the global pandemic, in the disinformation community, we began to call this period of time the infodemic. And that is because since the pandemic started, if you look at historical cases of disinformation, so throughout history, which that's how my book begins, is looking at historical case studies. This is the largest instance of disinformation and misinformation in history, in any country, because so much false information is swirling online, because we have technology that helps amplify it and spread it and increase its reach. More of that is spreading on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis than we have ever seen. So we call it the infodemic. And this is the scenario in which we are holding a very critical presidential election. We have this rapidly moving information environment. Even from 2016, we have even more social media platforms than we had back then, where people are having conversations, they're sharing information. We have new technology even since then that allows people to more effectively and easily than ever before create things like edited videos without any sort of background in editing or skill set in editing videos. You can do it on an app on your phone very easily. I think we probably all agree on this call, we're more politically divided than ever before, which is, intentional by a lot of actors using disinformation as a weapon. And then we're also a bit, I don't know, I think a lot of us go between sort of being numb to being shocked, to being surprised, to not being surprised by the sheer number of scandals that have come out just in the last 3.5 years that have really affected the way in which we ourselves are seeing and processing information. So with that sort of painting of the picture, a doom picture, maybe it sounds a little bit like, after I sort of think about what I just said, I sort of want to lay out where we're at with sort of the disinformation threat landscape right now and compare it to 2016. So since 2016, the number of foreign government actors that use disinformation as a foreign policy tool and tactic and as a weapon against particular targets, that number of foreign governments has increased. As countries have started to see how effective disinformation can be when used against a particular target. So going off of the Russian example, they have seen it be effective. They have seen that Russia has faced very few consequences, if any, for doing so. And it's really inspired a number of countries to either increase what they were doing before or start anew, essentially. So I look at countries here like China, for example, which has absolutely shifted its strategy in using false information, particularly within the last year, and has started targeting the United States on particular policy priorities for them in different ways. I would also put other countries here that have long had a domestic disinformation program that they have used to target their own citizens. and crack down on their own citizens to limit freedom of the press and things like that, who are increasingly using that domestic capability and focusing it outward now on foreign policy priorities, because they have seen how effective, again, it can be as a foreign policy tool. So I would put countries here like Saudi Arabia, India. The ruling party in India has an extremely capable disinformation capability that they used to win power, and it's you know, there are ways in which they can now leverage that domestic capability to now focus on using it for foreign policy priorities as well. And these countries are using a range of means. So when we talk about disinformation, we talk about Russia in particular, it's often sort of Russian bots are the terms that come up. Russian bots, Russian trolls, that sort of thing is what comes up usually in conversation, but they're employing extremely comprehensive strategies. So it's not just you know, a Russian troll or a bot, but it's websites, it's targeting elected US officials to try to get their priorities and their messaging in front of the American people. It's trying to tap into journalists and fool journalists into reporting for them. A lot of these tactics are things that they used back when they were the Soviet Union, and they could target, you know, print newspapers and things like that. Now they have technology and social media to do things at a much larger scale that is basically no cost to them at all, no or a little bit of cost, and they face no consequences for it. So, but they also have this extremely capable domestic government-run media, and this is, again, not just Russia, this is China as well, where they use their own domestic media that has a global reach to very overtly and in our face and without apology push particular false narratives in front of the American people. And then data collection. You know, if anyone has worked on a political campaign, you know that modern day political campaigns are fought and often won using data very effectively. And in the United States, data is not a priority. Protecting our privacy has not been a priority the way that it has been in places like Europe, for example. And so campaigns are able to acquire vast amounts of information on who we are as voters, and various nefarious actors are using that data to target and message and put false content in front of particular audiences. We've seen it with, you know, the Trump campaign. We've seen it with campaigns all across the United States, where they push, for example, false information that plays off of racism and things like that to particular age groups, to particular, you know, to white individuals who are over the age of 60, for example, to try to play off of fears, to stoke racism, and to increase the political divide. So using that, it's called micro-targeting, where they use, you know, data to get particular information in front of audiences that they build through this data, is increasingly a very effective weapon. And then I think we also have to recognize the fact that since 2016, conspiracy theories have become mainstream talking points for political campaigns. We have, if you're not familiar with the conspiracy theory group QAnon, no doubt you will be soon. It's a conspiracy theory group that rose out of a conspiracy theory that had become quite mainstream toward the end of 2016. This group rose out of it, and within 3 years, there are now individuals running and winning elected to become elected representatives who believe in this conspiracy theory. When we think about conspiracy theories, I think most of us sort of think of you know, fringe ideas that maybe are like sort of black sheep uncle raises at Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving or something like that, and we all just sort of nod our heads and we're like, okay. But things have changed significantly, and QAnon is growing globally as a conspiracy movement, and it's extremely worrying when our own elected officials are playing off of those conspiracies or repeating those talking points themselves. It legitimizes them, it mainstreams them. And it's very worrying for disinformation researchers who are focused on protecting truth and fact. I also would like to mention as well the extent to which commercial entities and people who are financially motivated to use disinformation as a way of making money. the extent to which those have also been on the rise since 2016. So companies that profit off of scraping people's data and following them around on the internet, essentially to build very clear pictures of who they are, and then selling that data to political campaigns, for example. And they use false information to hook you and get you into their website so they can collect vast amounts of data on you. That is on the rise. Companies and groups who advertise things that sound a lot like disinformation. For example, social media influence campaigns. You can find any number of companies, domestically and foreign, where you can hire a capability that does social media influence. And in the past, we've sort of talked about that as digital marketing. It's just good digital marketing, right? And when campaigns use it, well, it's just good digital organizing, right? But it's starting to trend into these more red lines, or at least what I think should be red lines, about how campaigns are using information, how they're weaponizing false information, and how for-profit companies are literally raking in thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars by spreading disinformation. Since 2016, I would say one of the interesting things that has come out since then, so, just for a little bit of context, when I left the CIA in 2017, I sort of I was very used to living a very quiet life, absolutely not in the public eye. And if I was ever going to be in the public eye, it would have been because I was in trouble or something like that. And so I very reluctantly joined the public space and started writing and commenting on national security issues. And that came out of seeing the sort of collective panic by one side of the aisle mostly, and not the other, over the findings of the intelligence community about Russian election interference in 2016. And I left in 2017 wanting to be able to help Americans think about these issues, learn about these issues, and know what to do about them. And I think, since 2016, an interesting result of 2016 is that disinformation as a term and a topic and a subject in general has become kind of a kitchen table issue. It's something that people are mostly familiar with, they've heard about. They might not believe that Russia interfered, even though they did, but it's a topic that we talk about sort of normally. And before 2016, that absolutely was not the case. It just wasn't something that most Americans ever thought about. And so that's sort of been, I think, in some respects, a positive result of 2016, is this is increasingly an issue that people are talking about and seeing as a problem, a longer term problem for our society. But there's also been this sort of boomerang effect with that, I think, which is, the reverse of people talking about it and thinking about it and trying to take action on it has been that it's, I think, a little bit created a sense of fear and panic and distrust among voters about the reliability of the information that they see on a daily basis. And I'm sure all of you have experienced yourselves. I certainly see it play out on a daily basis on social media, where conversations very quickly among people who disagree devolve into claims of "you're a Russian bot," "you're a Russian spy," "you're you're a troll, you're paid for," etc. When as a result, it paints this picture of Russia as being this sort of international puppet master, and it elevates their capabilities as something that is controlling our lives, and that's simply not the case. Russia is very often very bad at what they do. They're just facing no consequences, so they continue to do it. But they are not international puppet masters. They are not controlling what is in our feeds. But I think the more we have talked about disinformation and the more that has been revealed about the information landscape, it has increased this fear of, well, I can't trust anything because Russia controls the world, right? And I think that's very, very unhelpful. It goes too far in the other direction. And so for disinformation researchers like myself, we are every day having this conversation of, do we make this information public? And if we do, will it do more harm than good? We want to expose nefarious actors as much as possible. But if the nefarious actors aren't actually having an effect, would the effect of coming out publicly with something actually do more harm than good? It's a very tough call to make, and it's something we have to do on a daily basis. Just a couple of sort of final points before asking for questions and thoughts. When I look at sort of the long-term effect of this, and my evolution on this, or my evolution in thinking on this, changes on a day-to-day basis based on all the information that we gather, all of the new campaigns that we identify, all of the different events that occur. My thinking on this evolves, but I think there are some broader trends that we can pull to sort of talk about what kind of long-term effect do all of these things have on voters and America in general, in our communities. So the first thing that I would raise here is that democracies are in a way normalizing disinformation in ways that really weaken our institutions and broadly reduce trust in the integrity of our elections. So the more that political campaigns edge toward these gray areas and play in this dark space to win votes and recruit voters, I think it will have damaging effects on our democratic institutions. The long-term effects that we are seeing now, today already, is that people who feel like they can't trust what is in their social media feeds, what is showing up on news websites and online, they're retreating to some very dark places that are very damaging for our society. So they're retreating towards more fringe ideas when they feel like they can't trust the institutions. And this is institutions, everything from the media to the office of the president to Congress to the judiciary, and that sort of thing. When they feel like they can't trust those traditional sources of information in these institutions, they are moving towards these more fringe ideas, these more fringe personalities who claim to have the truth, right? So that's whether that's conspiracy theories or super hyper partisan public figures that routinely push out false information. This is where people are often retreating. Other elements that are feeling like they can't trust information in institutions are withdrawing completely. They're withdrawing from being engaged in their communities, from enjoying their right to vote as citizens of this country, because they feel like it's not worth it, that it's not, that everything is rigged, that they can't trust the outcome anyway, so why participate to begin with? And from my perspective, this just does a huge amount of harm when people begin to withdraw from the democratic process, from their communities, and from engaging in and keeping up on things like the news and the happenings of their countries and their country and their communities. And then I think also long term, we're increasing this polarization this political polarization that we have been feeling very acutely, in particular the last couple of years. The long-term consequences of having a society that has so much disinformation, including being spread by the highest offices of the land, increases that polarization, particularly when they pair it with things like, here is this false claim, which they don't categorize as false, of course, and as a result, this particular target is your enemy. So one of the other elements that I work on quite a lot is white supremacist groups, neo-Nazi groups, militias, and things like that, and the extent to which false information has increasingly radicalized those elements or people who would be attracted to those kinds of groups in a way that stokes fear and tension and propels them toward violence. I'm extremely concerned about that. I've just painted a very dark picture. I do always try to end talks on a hopeful note, and I think there is reason to be hopeful. So just two things I would add here, and then maybe we can talk about this in the Q&A portion a little bit more about solutions. So I hear from people daily, multiple times a day, that they are engaging with organizations that work in the disinformation and misinformation and digital media literacy space. People who've read my book, not to toot my own horn, but who have read my book, which is very actionable and gives sort of proactive steps on on how to implement better information consumption habits. All of these people who are actively looking for ways to spot false content, and they're seeing results by employing tactics, tools and tactics designed to help them. That gives me a lot of reason for hope. I think a change of administration, we will see much more of a focus on disinformation and foreign election interference than we've seen under this administration, certainly. And so that is also a reason for hope. The third thing I would point out is that we've done very little in the United States, which is a negative. But on the plus side, there's nowhere but up from here, because if we have a Congress that can be engaged on things like regulating social media companies, to put the onus on them to take stronger action on combating disinformation on their platforms. If we have a government that is actively funding grassroots efforts to provide digital media literacy training in schools and in communities with adult populations, that will only help. If we have a government that is interested in protecting the privacy of its citizens, we can clamp down on some of these issues. And then, of course, as I mentioned when I started, all of you give me a lot of reason for hope. So thank you.
Cindy, I have a question, if I can ask, because it's easier than trying to type it into the chat. First of all, thank you for being here. In case I missed it, I had to step away for a minute. Can you sort of qualify or classify Antifa? Everybody uses that term as if it was an organization. And can you tell us what you know about the term itself or how it's used?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, so there's some ongoing work that I'm aware of to try to go back and identify how the idea of Antifa really began, because what we see in the information space is that it is an idea much more propagated by the right. This supposed organization that exists, it is much more propagated by the right than it is by the left. You'll see some elements who claim on the left to be part of Antifa, but again, it's rallying around more of an anti-fascist idea as opposed to an organization that is looking to commit violence of some kind. So what we have seen is that the right has really weaponized and harnessed the idea of Antifa to paint this picture of a domestic terrorist organization that is going to come to your cities, burn it down, loot, take your jobs, overthrow your government, et cetera, et cetera. When the reality is we see no organization that is looking to do that with any sort of national reach. But it has certainly been, particularly since the pandemic started and also national unrest over police violence, it has been increasingly weaponized by the right to scare voters, essentially.
Oops.
Cindy, you mentioned QAnon, and I was just wondering, for my benefit, maybe the benefit of other people, what actually is the conspiracy theory that is being promoted by that group?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So just a little bit of history. So you may remember one of the more confounding things, I guess I would call it, that happened toward the end of 2016, right before the election, was there was this conspiracy theory that popped up claiming that particularly prominent members of the Democratic Party were operating a child sex trafficking ring, primarily out of a pizza parlor basement in Washington, D.C. Every time I say that, I haven't yet gotten over how shocking it is to say that out loud. And this is years later at this point, and I've written about this in a book, and it is still a very odd thing to come out of my mouth each time. But it was a conspiracy theory that spread like wildfire ahead of the election. It was propagated by domestic individuals, conspiracy theorists, and it was also amplified by what we now know were Russian-run fake accounts that saw this as a fabulous opportunity to undermine the United States and to spread a very dangerous conspiracy theory. It resulted in an individual actually going to the pizza parlor and shooting the pizza parlor up because he believed that there were children that had been kidnapped, were being sex trafficked, and held against their will in the basement of this pizza parlor. Turned out there wasn't even a basement in this building. The offshoot of that was a couple of months later, a couple of social media accounts on a image board that you may have heard about in the news called 4chan. It attracts conspiracy theorists, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, all sorts of nefarious actors. Some claims began there from an individual claiming to, they identified themselves as Q. They claimed to have access to the country's most secret intelligence, to have inside information, that he knew for a fact that this conspiracy theory was true, that prominent Democrats, but also others, were participating in this child sex trafficking ring. The thing with QAnon is that, so Q posts frequently messages that it tells its followers it needs to decode, essentially. And it sends the followers off on sort of a hunt around the internet to make connections between different events and different bits of information to make then these broad claims. The thing with QAnon is that it is an ideology that is very much open to interpretation, and it's built that way. So the individuals will say, here are these random pieces of information. They're not random. Figure out what they mean. And all of these followers are energized by this idea of they can be the ones to hunt down the truth. It's a very emotional kind of emotionally based ideology. It's because it's open to interpretation. The idea that there's some sort of QAnon canon, some sort of set in stone QAnon belief system, there just isn't one. It's sort of up for interpretation. And what ends up being considered sort of QAnon belief is mostly the content that goes viral. So people will throw different ideas out there like spaghetti at a wall. They'll say, well, I think, based on this evidence that I have compiled from my hunting around the internet, that not only, was Hillary Clinton involved in this, but also Oprah, for example. And Oprah went viral. So the claim that Oprah was involved in this went viral. And now it is pretty common belief among the Q community that Oprah is part of this false sex trafficking ring. So you never necessarily know what QAnon believes, because it's really dependent on what its believers identify and claim, and then what sort of goes viral. But there's certainly also this element that I think, and hopefully you'll be hearing or seeing more from me in this space in the news in a couple of weeks, but about some findings. But there is this whole commercial side of it as well, where individuals have come forward saying they are QAnon translators, they can speak for Q. Also, please buy my QAnon t-shirt that I sell on my merch store website, buy my natural supplements, dietary supplements, because you can't trust big pharma. QAnon said so buy my natural dietary supplements. You can't trust, this, so give me money for that. I now own an independent news operation because you can't trust the news media. I mean, the extent to which the QAnon is a grift as well is just, it's mind-blowing, and people believe it. So yeah, that's sort of the short gist of QAnon.
This is a question for Cindy. This is Vivian Wiles. I'm from Washington. But I just want to know about these so-called Proud Boys and how, in cases of voting day, these people are going to show up at the voting polls. And is this something that should be illegal? I mean, how can they just come up and decide they poll watchers that was suggested by the current president?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that we absolutely have our eyes on. We did some work that appeared earlier this week in the Washington Post, looking at militia groups like this. and more will be coming out from us on this soon. I'm also happy to provide, because you're right, they can't do it. It's illegal in all 50 states to do voter intimidation. And so we have some partners who have put together a really great resource, and perhaps I can send the link to Liz and get it all to you, that shows the different legal mechanisms by which states can clamp down on voter intimidation efforts from groups like Proud Boys. So we're absolutely seeing across the board, not just with Proud Boys, but other white supremacist organizations, that they, and QAnon as well, by the way, which is increasingly moving into militia groups as an ideology as well. They are absolutely responding to the president's call for poll watchers, and they are signing up to appear at polls, and that, of course, gives us great cause for concern in terms of threats on election day. So. So we are watching it really carefully, but I will provide that link to Liz so she can get it to you all, because I think the more that we are funneling resources to our different state and local offices to show them that they actually do have legal means to prevent groups from this from intimidating voters, I think it will help.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Are there any other questions? I think we have maybe another 5 minutes or so, because I know that Cindy has another call to be on at 2 p.m. Oh, no.
This is Linda Walslegel from Reading, Pennsylvania. What is the name of your book that you wrote?
It is called True or False, a CIA.
What is the name of your book?
It's called True or False. So if you look up Cindy Otis and True or False, you will find it. But the full title of it is True or False, a CIA Analyst's Guide to Spotting Fake News.
And that was sent out, the link to where to purchase Cindy's book. I sent out a link to everybody who had registered as of last night, and I will send that out again to everyone who is registered as of this meeting, so that we all will have the opportunity to be able to buy your book, Cindy. It sounds fantastic.
Thank you so much.
I have a question.
I think Hazel.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Hazel.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for this briefing, because this is the first I've had anyone to really address this subject in detail. I do work for State Department, but not with that particular kinds of those issues. My question is, we use the term white supremacist very broadly, and I just wanted to get from you your thoughts on how it's defined, because it typically, from my perspective, it includes neo-Nazis, racist, xenophobic groups that are, in this instance, trying to suppress the vote. So could you respond to that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think I use the term pretty broadly as well. And sometimes it just comes down to whether a group, the difference between a white supremacist group and a neo-Nazi group in terms of what sort of Nazi-based iconography they use and symbology they use, and how much they sort of reference, the Nazi time period, party, and officials as part of their ideology as well. So I think there are probably others that are better suited to talk about the definitional differences between the two. For example, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, has some really great resources that's what I usually refer to as their resources on this issue.
Thank you. As I say, we have one more question and that's it, because I really want to be able to let you get prepared for your 2 o'clock. And I think Lauren has one, so we need to do that quickly.
Cindy, thank you. You're great. A lot of us have made commitments that we're going to keep between now and Election Day. So if there's one thing we can do, Cindy, one more thing, what should we be doing?
So that's great. I mean, so when I look at information and how we each of us use information, I sort of think about adopting good information consumption habits the way that I think about recycling. One person recycling their plastics and all of their recyclable material is not going to stop climate change or harmful effects to our climate. But if we're all doing it, that's cause for hope, right? So I think about information that way too. There are going to be so many things coming out between now and election day, on election day, and afterwards about the results as well. Posts that go viral, claims of personal stories of individuals saying, well, I was at this polling station and I saw this terrible thing happen, therefore you can't trust the results of the election. I would say do not share those. To the extent that you can, if you cannot verify who the person is, if you cannot verify their claims, resist sharing those stories. Resist sharing those claims, because there are individuals, governments, political parties, etc., that are looking to use and weaponize those claims of I personally saw this to paint broader concern and fear and distrust of our ultimate election results. So practice good information consumption habits. I would honestly, I'm planning to button up as much as possible in what I share on social media these days, except for voting information and that sort of thing. Information that gets people to polling stations and voting, that is what I'm planning to share on my social media platforms to the extent possible. So resist sharing the sensational, the inflammatory, these personal claims and all of that, because it's just too likely that we are going to be targets of disinformation.
Thank you.
Cindy, thank you very much. You've done an incredible work in your life, and thank you very, very much for sharing with us as well. And I'm going to go buy that book, absolutely, and I hope other people will too, and we will spread the word about that for sure.
Thanks so much, Liz, and to Diane for inviting me.
Thank you, and we hope to yes, and thank you very much to Diane Lechner from New York for recommending you to speak. That was terrific and much appreciated. So hopefully we'll be hearing from you again, and hopefully after November 3rd or a few days after that, we'll be in much better spirits. So thank you. So on and I did want to say though, real quick, you're probably not reading the chat, but there's a lot of people in there saying you rock. All right, and thank you very much, Cindy. So thank you. I do want to get back real quickly to state president's reports. As I had said before, we were going to put it in between. And Prudence Johnson from Maryland actually has to jump on another call at 2. So I would love to now introduce Prudence Johnson. If you could unmute, please, and tell us about Maryland.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Liz. This has been a very informative convention, and I am glad to be a part. My name is Prudence Johnson. I'm the president of the first African-American president of the United Democratic Women of Maryland since its inception nearly 75 years ago. I just want to thank you, Liz, for having this. This has been great. I also want to thank the members of Maryland who are in attendance, to include my wonderful parliamentarian, Nazarene Rahman, and our Western Region Chair, Kate Smith. We are currently holding monthly membership expansion sessions. These are meetings, and it's the third Saturday of each month. These are meetings which engage our members all across the state, and those who are actually interested in knowing anything about the voting process, the census, getting Joe Biden and other Democrats elected. We have these, again, the third Saturday of each month. We are also working with other organizations to help get Democrats elected by sending postcards, writing letters, going canvassing, registering people to vote, going to other states and doing whatever is needed in those states as well. We currently we're soon going to be launching a new program for high school students, a new civics program for high school students, so that we can begin to build new leaders for the next century and help them to learn the ways of our organization, that we too can have leaders for tomorrow to carry on the legacy of the United Democratic Women of Maryland. So I'm really brief, really talking fast, and I just want to say thank you all so much. Thank you, Liz, for your leadership. I appreciate everything that you're doing. Ladies, we have to work hard. This is the election of our life. If our life is going to continue to move forward and our democracy is going to be protected, we have to do all that we can, work as hard as we can to get Democrats elected in November.
Thank you very much, Prudence, and good luck on your next meeting too. I think
Thank
we're
you.
busier now because we're not even, we're just in our own house, we're busier, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Diane from New York, did you have anything that you'd like to say?
Yes, I just wanted to, say again to everyone how fortunate I feel that we are to be part of this larger organization. New York, we're still building our organization, and I've been thinking outside the box at how we can amplify our voice within the state Democratic Committee. We do not have a seat on our state committee. Something that I'm going to be working very hard to do in the next year or so. So what we did was we established an endorsement process for the first time for state assembly and state senate candidates. Put the word out with the county chairs. We have 62 county chairs, and we received a fantastic response. And we've had about 30 candidates who have sought our endorsement. Now, we base this endorsement on a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is based in turn on legislation that we feel is important to women in New York. And so it was an opportunity both for the candidates to learn what's important to us and for us to learn whether the candidates will support that legislation if they're elected. And in fact, in many instances, we had incumbents seeking our endorsement, which is fantastic. And we've added 2 more county chapters to our ranks. And these county chapters are doing the things that you've all mentioned. They're doing postcards, they're doing virtual events with candidates. They're working very hard in New York, we have indivisible groups. They're an activist group. They're nonpartisan, but they're aligned more with Democratic Party platform, and so they do a lot of the activism that the candidates want, the phone banks and whatnot. And we're also trying to help Women for Biden in New York with their social media operation. We have a Facebook page, and communications regularly come down from the Biden campaign, and we try to distribute that as much as possible.
Great, thank you very much, Diane, and thank you so much for bringing Cindy to us.
Great,
I love it. Really wonderful, really wonderful. Let me get my video on. Good. So, as far, I know Deb Dickey would like to add on to hers because being the first one was a little difficult, but I'm going to really embarrass myself right now. And Andrea, you probably, did you speak almost right at 12:30? I mean, that's how this unfortunately has overwhelmed me. So did you share about New Jersey?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Thank you. I haven't.
Yeah, I was on
actually.
Yeah, I was on the phone, so I don't think you heard me because you were having computer issues.
Thank you. So it's not that I have horrible senior moments. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrea. So I will, because I don't think that Nushi is on, and I do know that, as I had said, that Ruth is not here. I don't know if there's somebody from Pennsylvania who would like to share. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, though. but I'll give a minute if somebody would like to unmute and share about
I
Pennsylvania.
can. It's Susan
Okay,
Rutt.
wonderful. Thank you. I didn't want to put
Okay.
you on the spot, Susan.
Okay, first of all, I'm sorry that I'm unable to say welcome to Pennsylvania to everyone in person. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet, but this is great that we are able to get together this way and have this wonderful, wonderful conversation and get everybody even more excited about the upcoming election. First of all, as second vice president of the National Federation, I just wanted to say that Cindy has asked me to chair the fundraising committee and also the Young Women's Leadership Committee. And we've begun to communicate within these committees and to identify some goals and also some of our fundraising plans. I had sent a note earlier to point out the lovely scarf that our Eastern Regional Director Liz is wearing, and to tell you we still have some of those that we are selling as a fundraiser for the National Federation. If you go to nfdw.com, you can order one for only $20 plus a small handling charge. And we also are always looking for contributors to the National Federation to help with things like our organization's outreach and educational programs. And again, it's nfdw.com, and we appreciate your support. And I will also say thank you to Liz, our regional director, for organizing this event. Pennsylvania did hold a statewide meeting in person or via Zoom for those who couldn't attend in Harrisburg in September. And one of the main discussions centered around the support for our statewide slate of officers and also for the local races in which we have women candidates. And I am so pleased to say that in Pennsylvania, in this election, there are 80 Democratic women running for office. And this is up from 65 2 years ago. We have 7 women running for Congress across the state. 4 of these women are incumbents and 3 are new candidates seeking seats. We have 11 women running for the state Senate, 61 women for House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, and an Auditor General candidate who happens to be a woman. I am just so excited about this. And as all of you talked about the activities you're doing to get people elected and this Democrats elected, we are doing all of the same things. We had hoped to meet in the Pittsburgh area in June for our convention, and it was being planned at this fabulous celebration of women's suffrage. And unfortunately, that, along with our Women in Blue event, had to be canceled. But I'm also mostly disappointed that we've had to cancel our celebration brunch, which is an annual event to honor outstanding elected Democratic women all across the state. And again, I want to thank Liz and Andrea Mastro, who were able to attend with us last year, and we were pleased to welcome you there. And we hope that we'll have a tremendous victory in November, and also that all of these events can be rescheduled for 2021. So thank you, Liz, for giving me the opportunity to make that report.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you for all the work that you do. You do so much. Thank you. Thank you. And it all helps in getting Democrats elected, which is the whole purpose of what we're doing. So I think I will, I also just wanted to say that Irmgard from Puerto Rico was flying into Los Angeles, so she's not able to be on the call, but says to say hello to everybody. So Deb, Dickey, I can have you started, and now I can have you close.
We have a question.
Yes, Hazel.
Just a quick question. Since
Yeah.
there's no one on the call from Philadelphia, and I heard on Rachel Maddow last night, the gentleman, the state congressman, representative, who was talking about that resolution in Pennsylvania. And so I just want to ask Susan, and they said it's targeted to Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, which have large concentrations of minority voters. So I just wanted to ask Susan if they're going to single that out as an issue. It's a major, well, they said it could be you could be replicated in other states if this resolution goes through. So I want to know if you're going to look into that as an organization. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, I do not know what the state federation's plans are on that, but I will certainly follow up on that with Ruth, and we can get the message out to everyone on what we would be doing.
Thank you. And also let us know what we can do to help too.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So Deb Dickey from Connecticut. Are you still on?
Yes, I am on.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yes, we did have some things going on, and I apologize because I do have postcard on the brain because I did I did a few hundred last week. But that being said, we have had events going on, and our clubs are holding Zoom meetings. And the Greater Hartford Club on September 19th did hold a rally in Hartford, and it was in support of in support of Kamala Harris, because that was the anniversary of her being nominated. I think the month anniversary. But, they did have a press coverage, including the TV, and they had voter registration and voter information issues. And I was unable to attend, but from what I hear, it went very, very well. And we will be posting some information about it on our state site. And the other thing is, Jahana Hayes, some of you may be familiar with, she was the first Black Congresswoman elected from Connecticut, and phenomenal woman. She went from being an unwed mother at 17 to Teacher of the Year for the nation in 2016, and has been an incredible Congresswoman. And the Republicans are really trying to bring her down with a very concerted effort. And one of the things that we have done is we did apply to the NFDW for a contribution to her campaign, which they have approved. So we're really very happy about that. And also on September 19th, we had a 100th anniversary event for the Woodhull Project, which was a play written by one of our members who's a professional actress about Victoria Woodhull, who actually ran for president in 1872. And it was really interested. And links for the Woodhull Project is available on our state site. So, we're trying and we're working at it. And while Connecticut is a blue state statewide, locally it's a different story. So many of us are in a battle to keep the purple and even worse, the red from spreading. And I have to say, I so appreciate having our NFDW sisters for support and how much it means to be able to see everyone like this. And it reminds you that we're not alone. Despite the COVID-19 twilight zone we're living in, we're all in this together. And we're all hoping for a happier day come November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb. I know we're over. We were supposed to stop at 2, but it's always wonderful to be able to talk with everybody and hear what's going on. I do have one hand that is up, and I will acknowledge Jacqueline Hinkson, and then after that, we are going to have to close out the meeting. Thank you. So Jacqueline, if you wanted to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm so sorry. I happen to be on a project. I'm doing voters registration today, and I wasn't able to get some of my parts, so it kind of delayed me from being able to join in on proper time. So I appreciate getting the invitation, and I will be attending in the future. And let's just get out to vote. GOTV. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for doing the voter registration. That's wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Every little bit makes a difference.
That's right.
Yes, thank you.
Be safe.
All right. So in closing, we have 31 days until Election Day. And as much as we get scared, and I am very, very scared, we need to stay strong and fight on. We all know what is at stake. Our rights, our earth, our health, and what we never thought we could lose, our democracy. But we can do it. We can do it together. Let's lean on each other when needed, and let's bring along others who need us. So thank you very much for everybody coming together together today, because together we will win. Thank you and have a great day. Bye.